My name is Justin Taylor, and I am on a journey to make millions of dollars, along with my co-host Austin Wilder. Did you know that multimillionaires have their multimillionaire mindset before they make millions? Have you ever wanted to dive deep into their minds to figure out why they succeed? Well, this is the Gold Nugget Podcast, where we dive deep into their minds and pull out gold nuggets that you can go implement today. The Gold Nugget Podcast is dedicated to helping you unlock your full potential in the entrepreneur world. We hold no secrets back. This podcast is our playbook to making millions, and that is why the elite choose the Gold Nugget Podcast.
What's up, guys? I'm here with Vaughn Bethell and my co-host Austin Wilder. What's up, Austin?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing good. Vaughn, thank you for coming on today, man. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Vaughn. So I've listened to a couple other episodes you were on, and you spoke at Seven Figures. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that kind of know your story. But just in case, would you brag on yourself real quick and just let the listeners know why they should listen to you today?
Well, I don't like to brag, but since you asked me, no, I'm not playing. I don't have a long history in real estate investing, dude. I've been doing this for going on, I think it will be 4 years in August. So got into real estate investing kind of as, just an interest. My wife's best friend is, she's a real estate investor, and she owned a jewelry store. I owned a fitness business, sports performance company for 15 years before I got into this. And, over the course of her 20 years in her jewelry store, she had built up a pretty substantial, for most people's, I guess, scorecard of a rental portfolio. So she had built about 30 to 35 doors over the course of that 20 years. And that was a lot through just, off market listings, through, pocket listings through real estate investors and some stuff off the MLS. But she started flipping houses about 3 to 5 years before we kind of got into this. And I started living vicariously through her. So I would go on some of her flips, learning what she was doing. And then in between my fitness business and getting into real estate investing, I actually took a sales gig for a high-end remodeling company. So I was going in, and it was a one call close sales gig. So our job was to go into somebody's house, whether we're looking at doing a bathroom remodel, kitchen remodel, build a deck or sunroom or a screen room, was to, go in there, build rapport, get them to know, like, and trust me, do some measurements, show them the product, and then convince them that we were the best company to go with before I left the house. So I would spend an average of 1.5 to 2 hours in a house, getting somebody to know, like, and trust us and convince them. And, I did really well at that. I sold about $2 million in product for them in the year that I was there, and we were making a 10% commission. So I was making good money, but I quickly realized that I had no control over the back end. And after about 6 to 9 months in, the back end wasn't delivering what they say they were delivering. So I kind of got out of that. But long story short, that kind of piqued my interest again into the remodeling, renovations, and just real estate in general. So ended up starting this company, REI Junkies, here in Greenville, South Carolina, in August of 2018 with my wife's friend as a partner. And we didn't have any money to go out and just start buying a whole bunch of properties. And we didn't really know how to raise money, but we were like, hey, how can we make money with no money? And that's where we quickly found wholesaling. And it took us about 4 to 5 months to get our first deal. But once we got our first contract locked up, we ended up closing on it and made 30 grand. And that was proof of concept right there. So we were like, hey, this thing works. Let's do it. And so fast forward 3.5 years, I ended up buying out my partners after year one. We did $150,000 in revenue in our first year, but I was splitting everything 3 ways, and I felt like I was doing 90% of the work. We were friends, so we quickly came up with an agreement because we always said we'd never let business come through friendship. I bought them out the next year in 2020. We did about $300,000. Me, and about halfway through the year, I hired a full-time executive assistant that was wearing a whole bunch of hats with me. And then from there, we went from 2020 doing $300,000 to really finding our purpose, our core focus, getting everything dialed in. And in 2021, we did 1.3 million and with a staff of 11. So it's kind of been a lot of exponential growth over the last couple of years.
Dude, that's awesome. Man, I like to dive into the content right away. So if you don't mind, just kind of starting off being a little vulnerable. So when I was kind of digging in and learning a little bit more about you, one of the things I heard you say in another podcast you were on, you had talked about when you worked at that other company. Uh, you had mentioned that the reason that you had left that company, they were just, you just didn't like how they were handling funds, and you didn't like how just the company was ran. And you had said you had this phone call, and you said by the time you got off the phone call, your daughter was just crying. And so
Oh,
you had said, okay, that's it, I'm quitting the company.
absolutely.
To me, that's a cool story. Like when people hear that, they're like, oh, that's cool, that's part of my resume. But in all reality, something like that actually sucks. So can you hone in a little bit more on, bring us back to that moment for that, that
Absolutely,
person
man.
that's
Yeah.
back there, and just be vulnerable for a little bit and tell them how to get out of that situation and move on.
Dude, that was a turning point for sure. Cause the company, I was making good money, right? And but you have to truly believe in what you're doing, especially in a sales position, to do well at it, right? Or at least to maximize your potential. So when I first started the company, there's a lot to be proud of. It's one of the top, high-end remodeling companies in the area. They're doing very well. They had, 5-star ratings all over Facebook, Google. They had, multiple 5-star ratings with the Better Business Bureau. And what they told me, first perception is when I walked in the door is they were an awesome company. Well, it was an awesome company for the first 6 months. Well, I've never worked for anybody since I've been out of college. So that was the first time working for somebody else in probably about, 15 years. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have control over, the deliverables from A to Z, right? And it was actually when I started, it was a welcomed, I guess you could say, perk of not having to worry about everything else. I just had to wake up in the morning, look at my schedule. I had 3 to 4 appointments throughout the day. I had to drive to the house, show up, get them to know, like, and trust me, make a sale, go to the next one. And then once I made that sale, I didn't have anything to worry about. So I thought. And so I did that strong for about 6 months. When I first started the company, if we were doing a, let's say a screen room, we're completely building a screen room from the roof down to the walls, right, on the back of somebody's house. They told us it would take, we can get to their project, tell them we can get to their project within 2 to 4 weeks. And it will take us about a week to 2 weeks to finish a project, right? That's expected. That's pretty good turnaround time when you're, building a screen room. Well, even on a bathroom remodel, it was the same thing. Kitchen remodel, we get you in 2 to 4 weeks. Well, they gave us a line to tell all of our customers after we, collected their check, because our job was to get them to sign a contract and collect 30 to 50% down, right? So if I sold a $20,000, screen room, I'm walking out of there with about 10 grand on average. All right. My line to tell them was, all right, here's what you should expect next. Somebody's going to be contacting you from our office within the next 24 to 48 hours. They're going to set up a time for one of our production managers to come out here to double check the measurements for myself. Also, so they can go ahead and order materials and get you on the schedule to get your screen room built. Right. Pretty solid. Well, about 6 months in, and for me, I'm giving everybody my personal cell phone number. I'm giving them my business card. And, when I'm sitting across the table from them, the only person that's representing that company is myself. I'm wearing the company logo on my shirt, but it's me. That's who's the face of the company. About 6 to 9 months in, I started getting a couple calls, and people were saying, hey, Vaughn, it's been a couple of weeks. We haven't heard from anybody at your office, or they haven't sent anybody else out here yet. I said, okay, well, let me check on that. I'll call back to the office, and, somebody in production or, the assistant would tell us, oh, well, let me check on that and follow up with them. And they would. Well, fast forward another month or so, these calls became a lot more frequent. Except it was saying, hey, I haven't heard from anybody in 6 weeks, or it's been 12 weeks and nothing has started. They haven't had even sent somebody out here. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry about that. Let me find out. Then I started getting the runaround back in the office. Well, that doesn't sit well with me because it's my reputation that's on the line.
Yeah.
So, it just became something that, I knew something was up. And then the last month, 2 months I was there, I didn't believe in the company anymore. I didn't believe that they said they were going to do what we were saying that we were going to do. And, when you're in sales, if you don't believe in something, you can't really sell it. Unfortunately, I was still selling product, trying not to sell product.
Yeah.
So I'd already talked to my wife about, how I was feeling. I just wasn't comfortable, and I probably was going to end up putting in my 2 weeks notice. Well, Justin, what you said is the straw that broke the camel's back. is I'm sitting there on the weekend, me and my daughter are sitting on the couch watching TV, and I get this phone call, answer the phone, and this lady is livid. I mean, she's giving me the up and down. She's cussing. You stole my money. It's been 8 weeks, and you got $12,000 of my money, and y'all didn't do nothing. And you're a thief, and I'm calling the law, and the sheriff's office is going to come out and get you. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm sorry. I didn't steal your money. You didn't write a check out to my name. You wrote it out to the company. Here's the number of the company. I'll do what I can to find out what's going on as well. And she was like, no, it was you. You're crooked, da 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 da. And she just cussed me out, right, for a good 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm just sitting here taking it. And then she hung up the phone. But as she hung up the phone, I looked over, and my daughter, who at this time she was 10 years old. So she looks at me, and she's just bawling, tears running down her eyes. She goes, Daddy, did you steal that lady's money? And I'm like, oh, my heart sank. I'm like, no, no, dear, I didn't steal her money. Da 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 da. Something. This is the company. Something's going on with the company. I don't know. And that was just for me at the turning point. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I actually told my wife, I said, this week I'm gonna go in and put my 2 weeks notice in. And for our scheduled Wednesday sales meeting, actually Tuesday night, they send a text message out to all the salespeople saying mandatory meeting, 10 a.m. Wednesday morning. And I just kind of looked at my wife, and I showed her the message, and I said, I bet you I know what this is about. Yeah. Being a business owner, the writing had been on the wall for a while. So we went into that sales meeting. They told us they were closing the doors. Turned out that, apparently there's a lot of turnover in installation on the back end. So projects were getting backed up. They were, from a financial standpoint, robbing Peter to pay Paul. So taking down payments to finish other projects. And there's a lot of mismanagement of funds by the CEO, where instead of, cutting back expenses and letting people go or whatever, he was just robbing Peter to pay Paul. So when they closed the doors, they actually owed about $400,000 to vendors for supplies. But the worst part about it is they owed about $1.8 million to customers that had put down payments down.
Oh, wow, man. I appreciate you diving into that. I know a lot of people don't really start off with a question like that, but the reason I wanted to chat about that first was because I think hearing somebody successful as you talk about that and being vulnerable, I think that's so much more valuable than the technical, knowledgeable side, because, man, knowledge is everywhere. You can go on YouTube, you can read any book and figure out how to flip houses. But I think where the gap is, where society is kind of struggling, is they see these people, like they might see Vaughn Bethell, say, wow, he did 1.3 million, but there's this gap. They're like, well, how do I become like Vaughn Bethell? And they might run into something like that in that exact situation. Like they see their daughter crying, I just quit my job. It's like, oh crap, what's next? I think talking about that and honing in on how to get through stuff like that is more important than the technical stuff. Because if you've got that mindset on how to get through that stuff, you're going to figure it out. I mean, you'll start,
absolutely,
start falling into place. But like with that being said, can you talk a little bit more about once you quit, like from that day you quit to you really got the ball rolling? Like what were some of the things you were really focusing on to succeed and kind of push through hard stuff? Like, because I know you had said you were also a strength coach, like you built up a pretty huge clientele and then you just quit, said, okay, I have a successful business, I'm going to go to this sales company. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to quit. Now I'm going to go into real estate. I mean, I'm guarantee you during that whole time, you probably had questions like, what am I going to do next? Like, can you talk
absolutely
on how you got through that little phase to keep pushing through?
For sure, man. Like, so I majored in health and exercise science in college, and I started doing personal training while as an internship. And that turned into a part-time gig and into a full-time gig, and then ended up opening up my own sports performance and personal training facility. The day I opened up my sports performance and personal training facility, I had 23 clients that I had taken from another gym and some soccer players that I was training on soccer fields. And over the course of 11 years, I grew that from me as the only trainer with 23 clients to 350 clients and a staff of 14 coaches. Now, what I did wrong, and from the outside looking in, we were very, very successful. We were the biggest show in town. We were CrossFit before CrossFit was even a thing. I remember a lot of people coming to us and say, hey, you heard this new, about this new thing called CrossFit? And I started looking into it, and I'm like, we're already doing that. Our whole tagline was train like an athlete. I'm like, we're doing all the things that they're already doing. That's, pretty much our philosophy, for the most part, we won't get into the whole CrossFit thing, but train like an athlete, functional movement training, all that good stuff. But what I did wrong in that is, I didn't set up the systems and processes the way they should have been. I didn't hire the way I should have hired. I built myself a glorified job, even though I had team members. I didn't set it up to where I was actually in that true CEO role. I was still managing everybody. I was micromanaging everybody because I had when I look back at it, I had a bunch of young, entitled kids working for me that didn't appreciate the value of $1, right? And hard work to get there. So that's a story in its own. But it really drove me into the ground, like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to the point where I almost had a nervous breakdown. And if I didn't do something about it, I was going to end up in the hospital because of the amount of stress that I had put myself in. So I made the choice to walk away. I did make sure that all our clients were taken care of, our team, our coaches, and everybody were taken care of. Our personal training clients took their clients with them. Our group training clients went to another spot that 2 of our guys opened up. So, but I was willing to walk away because it's not about the money. It's not about the success. It's about, work-life balance. And I had none. And I had 2 young kids at home. I had a wife that we had been married for, what was this? At 11 years. We're getting ready to celebrate our 11th year anniversary. So it was just affecting everything outside of work as well. So when you've been in something for that long, you start to realize that you identify with that particular thing that you're doing, right? Yeah. So over the course of my time, I was known as the fitness guy, the soccer guy around town, and you start believing that's your identity. So when you cut that off, and I decided to walk away, I struggled with for a while of who am I? What am I going to do? Right. Mm-hmm. Fortunate enough, I found real estate. But that in that break of me shutting down my gym and getting into real estate investing was that time of sales in that remodeling company. So it kind of sparked it. And I use that as a hurdle because even though this experience wasn't the greatest, I learned a lot from that 1 year. And one of the biggest things I learned is in something that I've always been a big advocate for was creating a wow experience, right? And that wow experience is from A to Z. It's not after the sale, right? Because the relationship doesn't stop after the sale. It's being able to deliver that experience from point A to point Z and continuing on that relationship, because especially in the real estate investing market, that relationship doesn't end just because you help somebody sell their house. Yeah. More than likely, if you do a great job, they're going to refer other people to you, or they have multiple properties. And you might not even know that they have multiple properties. They're just seeing how you handle this one. Mm-hmm. So when I set up this company and started this company, I was very big on, number one, for myself, creating a work-life balance. So I was very intentional on that from the start. I wasn't working, 18, 19, 20-hour days like I was before. I was leaving work at work. I made sure that I was taking my kids to school every morning. Wouldn't start work until I did that. And then I was getting off before my kids got home or before my kids had practice, because I wanted to take my son to soccer practice. I wanted to be there for my daughter's band practices and her recitals and things such as that. And then on the weekends, I wasn't going to do anything. So that was what I set out to do. Yeah. And for the most part, I've stuck to that.
Dude, that's
now
awesome.
We all know in a scaling business, there's going to be times when you have this pendulum of, work-life balance. And sometimes the pendulum has to swing a little bit more towards work if you're in a, very fast growing or scaling company. But you always got to know when to come back to the middle and even swing back over to that left-hand side to the family. So I've been very intentional about that.
Mm-hmm. No, I like the idea. I like that you just mentioned the pendulum. In the last previous church service, the preacher, he actually kind of talked about how, he told the story of a real estate agent. Like he was working so hard to provide for his family that he wasn't there for his family. And it's kind of funny when you think about that statement. It's like, hey, I'm working my butt off to provide for my family, but I might be working so hard that I'm not even there for my family. And so I love that, just that idea of that work balance, because it's cool to just, I think he had used an analogy of like when you go to the ocean, like if you start scuba diving, like if you don't poke your head up, the wave's going to take you. And if you poke your head up, you realize you're a mile offshore. You're like, oh crap, how did I get here? So it's kind of like, it's good to just quote unquote, poke your head up and check yourself every now and then. Like, what's my work balance life? Do you have any,
Absolutely.
do you have anything tangible? Like if somebody to, how do they pop their head up? How do they check? Like, how do you journal? Like, how do you check yourself? Like, what do you do? Do you have different, I've heard people like they have different buckets where it's like, I check these different buckets or I journal about it. Like, how do you implement that to actually check it?
Well, I mean, probably one of the things that I've implemented this year, and to be honest, I haven't been able to implement it to the degree that I want to implement it. But creating booked, intentional clarity breaks, right? To where you get clarity on where you are in business and in life, right? Because to be frankly honest with you guys, that pendulum right now for me is probably too far over here in the work side than I want it to be. So, but I know that. And I say that because I'm in the process right now of I'm hiring a COO to run my company.
Yeah.
And I've had 78 applicants and had to narrow that down to 8. But over the course of the last month and a half, I've probably sat into 30 interviews. So because of that, and it's trying to still wear 2 hats, I'm a little bit over here on the work side, but I'm actually putting something in place to kind of swing me way back over here into the family side, and that's hiring a COO. And I think so many investors, especially starting out, and you have to do it when you start out, wear all the hats, but so many people aren't willing to give up money for time. And one of the things that I did very, very quickly in this company, I don't have any problem giving up some of my money as long as I can keep my time. So I hired pretty quick in our business. So.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think something I heard my mentor tell me, he was like you said, building that business, your pendulum might be a little bit more on the work side. So like if you're married, I think that's to like everybody out there who's married and trying to build a business, it's more important to, like with your wife, it's the more quality you give them, the less quantity they need. So it's just very important that you give them your full focus, even if it's a Friday night at an hour date. That 1 hour of quality is going to buy you that amount of time to focus on building a business.
Absolutely, dude. It's like I'm way over here on the work side, but I still have things in place to make sure that my family is taken care of, right? So for over a year now, me and my wife. So in 2021, beginning of 2021, attending a mastermind meeting, one of the things I realized is that family was good, right? So if you do on a scale of 1 to 5. I gave my family a 4, right? Yeah. But love, I gave my love a 2.
Yeah.
Right. And I gave love a 2 is because we had no problems in our marriage. We would get along great, but I didn't think like we were pursuing each other. We didn't have that, romantic side of when we just got married. Yeah. So, and realizing that, we implemented date nights every single week. And we've done date nights for over a year, every single week. So every Tuesday night, we block off 2 hours for me and my wife just to go on date night. And usually we're trying to find a restaurant or something or do something that we haven't done before. And every now and then something to come up where we switch that Tuesday night to a Thursday night, but we make sure that we still have it. So she had to work late last night, us recording this on a Wednesday, but tomorrow night we have plans already. Right.
Yeah.
So that's with my wife, and with my son, soccer. So we do soccer stuff together. I take him to soccer practice. He has games on the weekends. I help him play with his Xbox.
Yeah.
So we have some time there together. And me and my daughter, she loves watching TV shows with me. Right. So she has TV shows, or we have TV shows that we only watch together. Right. Yeah. And so we get to spend time with each one of the people in my family individually throughout the week.
Yeah.
So there's no substitute for that. Right. I don't cancel those things or push them aside for work.
Yeah.
Those come first.
Yeah.
I may work a little bit later at night after they go to bed, or come into work a little bit earlier because I still have to get those work hours in as far as where I'm at right now. But family is always first. And as long as you keep that compass to where family's first ahead of work, then you'll be fine.
Man, I know the stuff we're talking about isn't the typical conversation that somebody wants to listen to when they're trying to educate themselves on real estate. I know if somebody was once they start listening to this, they're going to be like, yeah, but how do I cold call? How do I find more leads? And they want to, I feel like so many people focus on like wanting to figure out that knowledge, but they don't focus on the topics we're having right now. And I genuinely believe I can give you all the secrets. I mean, I've been in several different mastermind groups. I could give you exactly, hey, this is the script. This is how to do direct mail. This is PPC. Like I can give you a way to fill the funnel. But I think if you skip the foundation, like, I mean, I love the analogy of building a house. If you don't have that solid foundation, it doesn't matter how nice the brick and the kitchen is, and kind of correlating that over to like, it doesn't matter how nice of a lead system I give you, that if you don't have that foundation, it's just going to crumble. And so just hearing from you, I mean, I say this over and over, but to that person that's listening, why do you disagree or agree? Like, what do you think about that statement?
Dude, 100%. In the fitness, in my fitness business, we had a workout called GOPI, right? GOPI. And it stood for get out of it what you put into it, right? And the same is in business, it's in life or whatever it may be. And, you know, in October of 2020, I joined my first real estate investing mastermind group.
Yeah.
All right. It wasn't cheap. I invested $25,000 into that mastermind group, right? Yeah. And I look at people, and there's other people in the group that, you know, that $25,000 it's not a small amount by any means.
Yeah.
However, I took that $25,000 investment and turned it into $1 million to our top line revenue over the course of a year. Because you get out of it what you put into it. And people can come in. I can provide people listening to this call with all the systems, tools, and coaching to be successful. But if they do nothing with it, if they don't take action, right, they're going to be sitting in the same place a year from now than they are today, right? Mm-hmm. So you get out of it what you put into it. And when I went into that mastermind, and I'm a huge proponent of coaching and masterminds, right? So especially industry specific coaching and masterminds, because I look at it as not stealing. You know, there's a lot of people out there that'll sell you their system. There's a lot of people out there that'll give you their system, give you their tools that you're using. And that's where the masterminds come into place, right? Yeah. You're not stealing their stuff. We call it best practices. Yeah. So if, you know, we're a $1.3 million company right now, we're planning to be a $3 million company this year. But guess what? I go to the people that are doing 3 to 5 million or more, and I see what they're doing, and I take what they're doing and I tweak it to what we're doing to make us grow, to help us scale. And I'm not stealing it because they give it to me. Yeah. I'm just taking their best practices that I'm implementing into what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. So you get out of it what you put into it, and if you're willing to do the work, and you buy speed by going to the people that are doing it right, they're successful, and they're where you want to be, then the return is going to be infinite. Mm-hmm. Because my $25,000 mastermind, you know, I put a dollar amount on that. It added $1 million to my top line revenue in a year. But guess what? You know, I saw what my $25,000 investment did, and the time I put in, the action I put in, and now I just joined a $50,000 mastermind group. Yeah. Right. Because the difference between a 7-figure company and an 8-figure company is mindset. Right. And I want to be surrounded with the people that are doing more than I'm doing and where I want to be, and have the same mindset and trying to get to the 8 figures. So that's awesome. $50,000 is a drop in the hat, looking at what the potential return can be.
I'm sorry, you can keep going. Yeah, go for it.
No, one more thing to say about it, because I feel pretty passionate about this.
That's good.
We're on an investors call.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Really, we're real estate investors, but we're investors. So many people listening to this call will easily drop $25,000 or $50,000 into a property to hopefully get back $25,000 or $50,000, right?
Yeah.
But they think twice about dropping $25,000 or $50,000 on themselves and their business.
Yeah, I love that.
Why is that? Why is that? Like, it blows my mind.
Man, I want to put a number to that statement. Say you put $25,000, that's a down payment on a $125,000 payment, and with the mortgage, you might cash flow to $200-$300 on a rental every month. Takes 20 years to pay off. I love the putting a number to this, because you said $25,000 for the mastermind group. You're paying $25,000. I love this. They did this at that. I went to an Orlando event with the 7-figure, and Bill Allen presented on this. He said this is how much it cost to join the mastermind group, $25,000. And so many people are so much focused on that 25,000 that in their mind, it costs 25,000. But if you truly understood the value of the mastermind group, it's actually costing you $975,000 to not join. Because what if joining that group is going to teach you how to get to $1 million? And so that the true cost of not spending that 25 is, if that group can teach you to go from 0 to $1 million, then that means it actually cost you 975,000. Because by the time you subtract the 25. So I love putting a number. I love putting a number to it. And so, for example, you said that 8-figure mastermind group, it's just that 50K is a drop, just nothing, because the amount of value it'll help you increase. Like you said, just that mindset from going from 7-figure to 8-figure.
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer.
Dude,
didn't even think twice about it.
That's awesome, dude. I could talk for 2 or 3 more hours about this topic, but I had a couple more things in my notes I want to try to hit before we get to that hour mark. So I'm loving it. I love these conversations. But dude, I heard a quote. This is from Atomic Habits, James Clear. I love that book. That book was a life changer for me, because there's 2 things he says in that book that just really opened my eyes. Like he says successful people they're kind of goalless thinking, but they're more focused on systems and processes. And then he also says people think that we lack motivation, but really we lack clarity. Those 2 statements, once you really dive into those 2 statements, what he's saying is he uses the analogy of like somebody training for a marathon. The goal isn't to complete the marathon. The goal is to be a runner. And the reason he uses that analogy is because if you just focused on completing the goal, once the goal is done, then there's no more motivation. It's the same thing with cleaning your room. Think about it. So many people clean their room, but what happens a month later? It's dirty again. And it's not because you didn't set a goal. It's because you didn't have clean habits. It's the same thing. I'm passionate about that book, but another analogy he says is in the Olympics. What's the difference between first place and second place? And it's not the goals they set, because they both had a goal to win the gold medal. The difference was the systems and the processes. And when you fall back to their daily habits, their training regimen, just the goals, because like that's what you fall back to. Can you talk on that? Like how important it is to focus on those daily routine habits? Because I feel like so many people look at the brick wall. They're like, hey, I got to build this huge wall, but they don't even take the time to focus on laying that first brick. Can you talk? I know that was probably several different quotes, but can you talk a little bit on that?
I'm pulling up my book right now, in the book, The 12-Week Year, right? Have you heard of The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran?
Oh yeah. I'm listening to that on audiobook right now.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, we use the EOS system, Entrepreneur Operating System. And so it breaks it down into quarterly rocks. But the 12-week year, Brian Moran really takes it down to another level and breaks down every year, like calendar year, into 4 12-week years, right? So most people can only see about a year out, right? If you ask most people where they're going to be in 5 years, they look at you and be like, I don't know. Yeah, how much can change in 5 years, right? Especially in the real estate industry.
Yeah.
And maybe some people can see 3 years. Not many people at all can see exactly where they want to be in 10 years, right? So, but most people can have a really clear picture of where they want to be in a year. So then you take that year and you break it down into 4 12-week cycles. And you think about it, 4 12 weeks is 48 weeks. So that leaves out 4 weeks. Well, those 4 weeks are really where you celebrate successes, celebrate achievements, but then you also put together a plan for the next 4 weeks, right? So you have a little clarity break in there. So it's not just from one quarter and then immediately into the next quarter. You get a chance to celebrate those successes. But what I love about the 12-week year is how he breaks everything down into daily action items, right? Daily and weekly action items. And those are the things that you have to be doing on a daily basis to help you and continue to move you forward towards that needle of where you're trying to get, right? So we can sit here and say, all right, I want to be here in a year. But if you don't reverse engineer that and break that down into quarterly goals or 12-week years, 4 12-week years, but even break it down even into more detail into what do I need to be doing every week to move that needle forward? What do I need to be doing every day? So we were actually going over this book as a team in our organization, and I made I highlighted the thing that stood out to me most in this last chapter. And it says, Benjamin Franklin said, if we take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves.
Oh, I love that.
How strong is that? Right.
No, I love that, because when you dive into that statement, I think what this is my opinion of that statement is taking care of the minutes. That's like saying, hey, I'm focusing on just laying this brick as good as the best of my ability. And if you just focus on one brick, I mean, you're gonna look back and be like, wow, I just built this huge wall. And I think that's basically what that's saying, is just focusing on your day-to-day activity. Dude, I like that statement. I haven't got to the end of the book yet. So,
and not even just taking care of the minutes. It's being intentional about the minutes, having a plan for the minutes, right? That's moving you forward, because another quote from Henry David Thoreau, it says, it's not enough to be busy. So are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a big difference between, activity and productivity.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go in every day to work or sit down with the intention of work, and they're just getting caught up in the day-to-day activity that makes them feel like they're very busy. But at the end of the day, they can't look up and tell you a single thing that they did to move forward towards their goal.
Yeah,
right?
I love it. I love it. Me and Austin's got this. We call it our non-negotiables. Like every week, like, hey, what's the non-negotiables you got to do to move the needle forward? And I want to hone in on you use the term reverse engineering. I love that, because me and Austin, we have our company that we partnered on, and we're trying to build it together. And we made our goal by year 2023, we want to be able to hire a COO where we can walk away from the business and we don't want to have to work anymore. I feel like when I made that goal, I was like, oh, this is big. I can't do this. But as we're kind of taking action, I'm like, crap, I probably set a goal too small. We might could do this sooner. But I love reverse engineering. Is the reason I wanted to bring that up is because when me and Austin set that goal, we said, okay, our goal is to hire a COO. We want to be able to step away from the business, work a couple hours a week where we just have a conversation with that COO and he runs the business. But we worked backwards and we said, okay, if we want to do this in 2 years, what does that mean? We have to complete year one. And then we said, if we complete year one, what does that mean? We have to complete each quarter. And then we were like, okay, now that we've got our quarterly goals, what do we have to complete this week to complete that quarter goal? And then we even broke that down into even daily habits. Like, what do we have to do each day? And I think we've been doing that for about, 8 or so months that we really had that mindset. And I love it because I look up and sometimes I forget what our 2-year goal was because I'm so focused on this quarter goal. And we've doubled, what our quarterly goal was. And so it's just cool to see the power and that intentionality of like just how intentional it is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely, man. So I look at our core focus, right? Our 10-year vision or 10-year mission is to provide the dream of home ownership to 500 families through non-traditional financing.
Yeah.
All right. We came up with that mission at the end of 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. So by 12/31/2030, we will have provided that dream of home ownership to 500 families. Here's the reality, though. Talk about thinking small. We'll probably hit that goal in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But that was a big goal then. So when I look back at it and I reverse engineer that goal and I say, all right, what are the things I need to be doing, over the next 3 years, then over the next year, and then you really start breaking it down to those daily action steps. And like you mentioned, if you get focused on those daily action steps, next thing you know, you look up and you're a lot further along than you thought you were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And things change. And then if you're doing those, if you take ownership of what you're doing, then more opportunity presents itself. And so what you thought was an unachievable goal or that would take 10 years is now a lot closer than what it was before.
Man.
Right. But it only comes down to doing the daily actions that are going to help you continue to move that needle forward. Because if you don't have those daily actions, if you don't have a plan, you're going to look up 3 months from now and you're going to be sitting there with the same goal, but have done nothing to move forward towards it. Right. Mm-hmm. And I really think it comes down to, and you guys really need to buy the book, The 12-Week Year, and really digest that because it really takes it to a whole nother level of what you guys are doing. You guys are doing it the right way, but just adding in more detail. But it's not about accountability either. It's about taking ownership.
Yeah.
Right. And what it really comes down to is if you set up a plan, and you know that that plan, the weekly plan, that those daily action steps are what it's going to take to move you forward towards those goals, but you're not doing them, you're not taking ownership of them, how important is that plan to you? Because your action's showing you that it's not very important.
Yeah, man, that's awesome, man. I could easily talk a few more hours about just this topic. This is some awesome stuff, but just kind of wrapping it up. I mean, is there anything else that you feel like we should hit on? Because I mean, what I'd mentioned to you is somebody can listen to this podcast and really just hone in and be like, I want to know how to get leads. But these topics, people tend to let these type of topics go in one ear and out the other. Is there anything along those lines that we feel like we should hit before we wrap things up?
As far as lead generation and so forth?
No, I just meant like the mindset of these topics, like just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just find out what you like to do and then be all in on it. So if it's cold calling, if you don't like cold calling, don't be trying to put a plan in place for cold calling.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not going to do it. Chances are you're not going to do it. People always divert back to what they are comfortable doing and like doing. So if you don't like cold calling, don't be sitting here trying to come up with a cold calling plan unless you're coming up with a plan for somebody else to cold call. Yeah. Right. If you're, an introvert and you don't like talking to a whole bunch of people, maybe you should be doing text messaging. Right. Yeah. And maybe you should be doing direct mail and waiting for them to call you. But whatever it is, go all in on it. And one of the things that one of my coaches told me at the beginning of 2021, he said, Vaughn, he said, I want you to really focus this year. And his acronym for focus, I'll never forget it, is follow one course until successful.
I love that. I heard.
So what? Yeah. And if you do that, like for us, we got really good at finding off-market properties and negotiating them and get them under contract for the lowest amount possible. So we average about 15 to 20 properties in escrow right now. So now we've gotten really good at that one thing, but guess how many opportunities has presented itself from that, getting really good at that one thing.
Probably
now we have, multiple exit strategies that we can do. Now we can really look at, taking those properties down and providing that dream of home ownership through owner financing. So if you get really, really good at one thing, other opportunities will present itself, and it'll show you. It'll present itself. It's not you just saying, "Hey, I want to be over here." It's like, what does the market need? What is the market demanding?
Yeah. No, I that actually led me to think about one more thing. You said focus. I heard someone say the other day, you can make money. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate. And so like I heard a guy talk about how he's got like several different projects and several different niches. And he was having a conversation and I heard his real estate coach ask him, well, yeah, you're making money in several different things, but how much more money could you make in that one niche if you've really honed in on that one niche? Can you tell us a little bit about that? For me, I mean, I was horrible about analysis paralysis. I'm looking at my bookshelf. I probably read every book out there, but I think I started reading all these real estate books in my junior year of college. I ended up graduating. I think it was another 2 years after college before I got a deal. And I think that was 4 years of reading books and I never did a deal. So, I mean, I really look, because I remember looking up, I'm like, I just had a conversation with a real estate investor that flipped 10 houses last year and I knew more than him, but he's did more deals than me. And so that just can you tell us, just kind of wrapping things up on that, like just getting out of the analysis paralysis and just taking that action?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things, I was at a mastermind retreat a couple of weeks ago in the Boulder City, Nevada. And one of the things that came out of that was like the 7 problems in business, right? Yeah. And number 6 of that, out of those 7 problems in business, is most businesses are leaving money on the table. And breaking that down even more, they're not going deep enough in their area, right? So they're not going deep enough. They're staying shallow, and then they hit, maybe they get bored with it or whatever, and then they jump on to the next thing, right? So it's like that shiny object, right? Squirrel, right? Everybody's looking at, what's the next shiny object. But if you really focus and go deep in your area, that's what we did last year, is get really, really good at, finding off-market properties and getting them under contract and negotiating, then the other opportunities are going to present itself. But you're leaving so much money on the table by not going deep. And let's use the analogy of the books, right? You say you're looking at the books on your shelf and you can't, you've read all those books, right? You read a ton of them. I read a ton of books. This what's behind me is not even a fraction of my library. Yeah. However, one of the things that I'm doing this year and my coach is doing is, all right, I'm not going to make a goal of reading 52 books this year or even 20. I'm going to make a goal of going as deep as I can in the books that I read. and taking as much notes as possible and seeing what I can pull from it. Right.
Yeah.
So maybe I read 4 books, maybe I read 5 books, but I read them 2, 3, 4, 5 times from, front to back, and pull as many nuggets and actionable items out of those books to implement in my business and grow my business. So that's just for me going deeper in anything particular to get you to that next level.
No, I think that's the biggest gold nugget. You said focus stands for focus one course until success.
Yeah. Follow one course until successful.
Follow one course until successful. I mean, if you didn't hear anything today, that's the biggest gold nugget right there. I mean, there's so much opportunity to make money. But Vaughn, dude, this is an awesome conversation. Just wrapping things up. I mean, you did 1.3 million, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to dive into the technical side of that stuff. But I mean, you can get access to that knowledge, reading books, watching YouTube. But dude, I think this is what's important. You're building a company, you're hiring a COO with over, you said 80 appointments or interviews, and you had to narrow it down to 30. I mean, you're doing all this, but I think if you're listening to this episode, you got to listen to it a couple times to realize, like, hey, the difference between Vaughn Bethell and you is not, we're all people, we're all humans, we all deal with this. The only difference between Vaughn and you is you just it's that mindset. You got the mindset to take the step, keep learning, and know how to get through that stuff. It's not the knowledge. Everybody can acquire the knowledge and the technical stuff, but man, that's some good stuff right there, Vaughn. Man, I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. And take that one step further is action, right? Take action, do something, right? Don't just sit there and, try to study everything and feel like you got to know the ins and outs of every single part of real estate investing, because you never will.
Yeah.
But it's just take action, and take action. If you get really good at one thing, it's going to present other opportunities, and, let the industry show you where you need to be.
I love that.